Gina Sampaio. I'm the curator of the Lebanon Township Museum. We have some more seats way up in the front if you're not shy about sitting up in the front. It looks like there's some others too.
Richard does not spit.
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And I wanted to tell you that over the past few weeks, I've been saying to people, we're going to have a flag exhibit at the museum. And I know this sounds really weird, but I'm super excited about it. And maybe that doesn't seem weird to other people, but to me it felt weird because I've never been excited about flags before. I always liked history, and I liked history class, but it seemed to me that a lot of history class was asking me to memorize dates or learning about the results of specific battles. And I was more interested in the people. How did the people live during those specific dates? And how did those battles affect the common person and family? And anything I previously learned about the flag had fallen into the former category. It was more of the story of the people with power, the elite. I got George Washington, Betsy Ross. We had 13 stars, now we have 50 stars, and there wasn't really a lot of information about anything in between there. And then I met Richard, and then I got excited about flags. But his collection humanizes the story of our American flag, and it gets me excited about the process of going from 13 to 50. And it shows the pride and ownership that people have felt for so many years for our American flag. So I want to thank Richard for getting me excited about American flags and for bringing his collection here. Before I turn the floor over to him, I also just need to thank Squires Point historians, who you may or may not have heard of before, but you're going to be hearing a lot more about them because they're a growing group and they're doing so much for the township and for the museum. They provided the reception tonight, so let's thank them for the food they provided. They also helped with the donation of the hanging system that we needed for the flag display and part of the prize package for the apple pie baking contest on Saturday. Now, I know that I said that the 12th was the last day to tell me if you wanted to bake a pie for Saturday, but I will accept entries tonight also. Just, name. You bring the pie on Saturday. This exhibit will be up until July 13th. So like I said, we're having a Flag Day, Father's Day celebration on Saturday at 1. And then there will be another lecture with Richard on Saturday, July 13th at 2, and that one's called Famous Flags in History. And lastly, I just want to thank Mayor Mike Schmidt and the entire Township Committee. My liaison, Tom McKee, is here as well for all the support over the past few months at the museum. And I just also wanted to acknowledge and thank the newest Hunterdon County freeholder, Sue Soloway, is here tonight with us also. And now I'm going to hand it over to Richard Pierce. And you be correct.
Sorry, we're not.
I have a question for you. What does the flag mean to you?
Liberty.
I think if we went around the room, we'd find that there are as many answers as there are people here tonight. To me, the flag represents a symbol of the greatness of our republic and the values for which the country stands. It's also very important that it's a living tribute and a memorial to the brave men and women who sacrificed so much so the rest of us could enjoy the freedoms that we have. That's what the flag means to me. We all love history. We all love American history. I include myself in that group of people. But it's equally important that we not only love history, but that we educate others as well. One of the things that bothers me a little bit is the curriculum today in some of the schools does not stress the American history, as I learned it at least. and some other facets of history that are very important. And sometimes it's just flushed over rather quickly, and it's too bad. It really is a shame. I'm a little prejudiced, but I think one of the ways we can learn a great deal about our history and some of our value is through the prism of our national flag. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Because when you look back on the history of our country, in each and every generation, there have been great moments in our history that truly define the true character of our country. Washington and his troops crossing the icy waters of the Delaware River on Christmas night in 1776, on the eve of the Battle of Trenton. The Marines raising the flag on Iwo Jima in preparation for a 5-week-long invasion and fight on that island. Buzz Aldrin, astronaut, planting the Stars and Stripes on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission. And lastly, the 3 firemen raising a flag on a steel girder at the World Trade Center following the terrorist attack on 9/11. When you think about these and so many other memorable moments in our history, the one common symbol that's such an integral part of each and every one of these moments, the one common symbol that exemplifies what we stand for as a nation is the American flag. And when the Revolutionary War began, the colonies needed a national flag representing the new nation, and also a way to differentiate American ships from British ships on the high seas. A simple solution was to add 6 white stripes to the British red ensign to produce the continental colors, or the Grand Union flag as it's sometimes referred to. While this Grand Union was never formally adopted as an official flag, it did serve as a de facto flag of the United States until 1777. Now there's documentary evidence that Margaret Manny, a Philadelphia seamstress, sewed the first continental colors. And those colors were raised on December the 3rd, 1775 in Philadelphia Harbor on the USS Alfred under the command of a newly appointed lieutenant by the name of John Paul Jones. While many were not thrilled with the fact that there was a British ensign on an American flag, particularly naval officers, and even George Washington had raised the flag a couple of weeks later at Prospect Hill in Somerset, Massachusetts. And he raised the flag on a 76-foot pole, and he wanted it high enough so that it could be seen by the British in Boston, and it was. But as I said, a lot of people were not happy with the flag. In fact, after Washington raised the flag, a few weeks later he wrote in part, "We gave great joy to them without knowing or intending it. For on that day we hoisted the Union flag in compliment to the United Colonies. But behold, it was received in Boston as a sign of submission. The British thought they were surrendering." Obviously something had to be done. So a lot of pressure was put on the Continental Congress to come up with a new idea. On Saturday afternoon, June the 14th, 1777, a hot, muggy afternoon in Philadelphia, Congress met in a very short session, and they enacted 3 pieces of legislation. 2 were approval of Navy requests, and the third was a resolution that read, resolved that the flag of the United States be made of 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. This resolution, in fact, created the first official flag of the United States. No one knows for sure but who made the first flag, but its design is credited to Francis Hopkinson, a New Jersey delegate to the Continental Congress. He was also chairman of the Continental Navy Board and a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was one of 5 signers from New Jersey, the other 4 being John Hart, John Witherspoon, Abraham Clark, and Richard Stockton. Hopkinson was credited because he submitted to Congress 2 letters asking for payment of a quarter cask of wine for the work that he had done on the flag and other documents in over a 3-year period. His request, however, was turned down because Congress said, wait a minute, you didn't do this by yourself, there were other people that were involved in this. Well, as it turns out, there was never any proof that anyone else was involved. However, Hopkinson still was not paid. We don't know what the first flag even looked like, but probably it looked something like this. 13 red and white stripes, 13 stars in a, like this board's not, 3-2-3-2-3 pattern. The other thing I want to, I'm going to go back. The other thing I want to mention about Francis Hopkinson is, in addition to all the great work he did on the flag, he worked on a number of state seals. He worked on the Great Seal of the United States. He was a composer. He was a poet. He was a musician. He did lots of really great things. And a lot of the work that he did still lives on till today. As the country began to grow from 13 states to 15 with the addition of Vermont and Kentucky, the flag was not changed until 1794. There were a couple of reasons why. One predominant reason is that a lot of people thought that the original flag should stay the same, regardless of the number of states. The second reason is many in Congress felt that they did not want to spend the money to replace all of the flags. Now that would be a nice gesture today. But in 1794, with the addition of the 2 states, the second Flag Act was passed, enacted that the United States would be 15 stripes and 15 stars. This is the only flag in our nation's history, official flag, with 15 stripes. Where's Dave? Where's Dave? There's Dave. Dave and I talked the other day about, he lives in a house in about 1817.
1817, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the first things he did was to research what flag was in existence at the time. And it would be the 15-star flag. That was a question, by the way, one of the quiz shows, I think it was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Which combination of stripes was it for this particular period of time? And I think it was either $100,000 or a couple $100,000 question that was raised. So if you know that there was only one 15-star flag and 15-star flag, you might win some money sometime. That flag, the 15-star, stayed in existence for another 17 or so years. And it wasn't until we got to 20 states that we changed the flag again to the third flag. But in between that period of time, something happened. The flag, the 15-star flag, the Star-Spangled Banner flag, as it's often known, was flying at Fort McHenry during the Battle of 1812. And it was that flag that inspired Francis Scott Key to write his famous poem, not song, poem, in defense of Fort McHenry, that later became the words to our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. So the 15-star flag has lots of history behind it. It was made originally, the one for Fort McHenry was made originally by Mary Pinkerskill, a seamstress from Baltimore. And she was given a task to make this flag. The flag that flew at Fort McHenry was 32 feet high and 40 feet long.
Wow.
It's about the quarter of a size of a basketball court. And she took several weeks to make it. Even with the help of her daughter and a couple of nieces. It was so big that she had to, she at night, when a brewery closed in the area, she would take the flag down and put it on the floor of the brewery, because that was the largest space you could find in order to stitch the flag together. The stars are like 2 feet wide. The stripes are like 2 feet wide. So it's quite an enormous thing.
Wow.
The flag is now 8 feet shorter than it used to be for a number of reasons. It worn, and a lot of times what happened with flags was people would snip off souvenirs. In 2008, a 10-year restoration period was finished to conserve the flag. It was getting in really poor condition. Now, I should mention that Margaret's bill for the flag was $405.90, 40590. The flag was restored, as I mentioned, and ended in 2008, with funds that were given by Paul Ralph Lauren and American Express. The restoration cost was over $21 million. I happen to know the lady, Marilyn Zoidis, years ago, who was the curator of this project. And I talked to her several times on the phone, and I never got a chance to get down there to see what was going on. But it now has a new wing, if you will, in the Smithsonian, with new lighting, a new angle to the flag, and of course, security systems.
And a little missing. That couldn't be restored.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
I said, and a little missing, if you go back to the prior picture, you can see where it was chopped off on the
Oh,
corner
yeah,
of the
oh,
building.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Even though it
about
was
eight-
restored,
About
that
8 feet
was-
short, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The country glued about 20 states, and again, it was time to add some stripes and stars. But they figured it's not a good idea to keep adding a stripe every time there's a new state. I have seen flags that are 17, 18 stripes, and the stripes are like this. So what happened was a congressional committee went to Samuel Reed was a captain in the Navy during the War of 1812. And they asked him if he would take some time to come up with some parameters for the new flag. Come up with some parameters and a system whereby adding new states would not destroy the overall look of the flag. And he did. He made several suggestions. One was to go back to 13 stripes representing the original 13 colonies. And secondly, add 1 star in the canton for each new state as it came into the Union. And that star would be added on the July 4th following the year of statehood. He also suggested that the stars be arranged in what's called the Great Star pattern. And as each new state came in, it would be added, the configuration of the Great Star would be different, but the flag would basically continue to look like that. Excuse me. Congress passed the Third Flag Act, which took into account his suggestions. 13, go back to 13 stripes, 1 star for each new state on July 4th of the following year. However, they did not adopt his recommendation that the flag stars be configured in a great star pattern. So for the next roughly 100 years, the configuration of the stars in the canton was left solely to the discretion of the flag maker. Reed also suggested 2 other flags be made. One solely for government ships and buildings, which had an eagle in the canton. These are his drawings, by the way. And another one for ceremonies, which would have 4 sections: a great star, an eagle, stripes, and I think that's liberty. But neither of those suggestions was taken seriously and not passed. 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. South Carolina and 6 other states secede from the Union. At that time, Kansas came into the United States as the 34th state. This is the 34th state. This is 34 right here. However, Lincoln refused, when the new flag was being made, refused to eliminate those 7 stars from the flag. It was going to be a 34-star flag no matter what. And so, let me go back. I missed the slide. And so, on his way to his inauguration in February of 1861, he stopped at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, and he raised a 34-star flag over Independence Hall. And that was sort of like an act of togetherness, if you will, and it was an act that he said showed that the country was still united. After the Civil War, we came to our first 100 years as a nation. The centennial offered a unique opportunity for America. It was a time the war had ended, reconstructed, a lot of it had not gone well, but we were through most of that period. We're at a point now where America began to realize patriotism once again. There were flags flying everywhere, buildings, ships, homes, businesses, every place you can imagine. And it was in perfect harmony with our 100th birthday. The fair, the centennial itself, was held at Fairmount Park, along the Schuylkill River just outside of Philadelphia. It was the first time a World's Fair had ever been established in the United States. And it was a great opportunity for us to show the world what a world power we have become. Several flags were made specifically for the centennial. I'm going to show you a few. This is one of them, and it's in this room, on the back room. This is kind of a unique flag because not only is it 3-color printing, but it has gold stars, which is very, very unusual, particularly for a parade flag. Here's another one, a square with a circle and a large star in the center. These would be 38 star flags. And lastly, one of my favorites, 1776, 1876 flag. Following in the centennial over the next 20 or 30 years, in the latter part of the 1800s, we find that a lot of businesses began using the flag to advertise. Here's one from Dr. Doyle's Now, if you have anything wrong with you, this medication will solve it. This is a small paper flag, by the way. And here's another one that's from a meeting at lunchroom in Newark, New Jersey. The use of the flag did not stop with businesses. We had lots of politicians who saw an opportunity to help with their campaigns. Here's a famous Lincoln campaign flag, courtesy of my friend. So politicians began using the flag to get their message out to the public. In 1884, Grover Cleveland was elected President of the United States. 4 years later, he ran again against Benjamin Harrison. Benjamin Harris, this time, had 90,000 less popular votes than Cleveland, but had more electoral college votes. Therefore, he became the 23rd president. This is a flag that Benjamin Harris used in his campaign, and here is the flag. This was used in his 1888 campaign. They met again 4 years later in the election of 1892. Here are two campaign flags from 1892 that have the portrait of each of the candidates and their signature on it. This time, Cleveland beat Harrison to gain the White House again, which makes him first and the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. He's also famous for something else. There's a lot about Grover Cleveland that I've learned over the years, and he was the only president to ever been married in the White House. 2 other presidents were married while they were in office. I think Tyler and Wilson, but neither was married in the White House. So Cleveland was. One thing I forgot to mention, the election of 1888, where Harrison won the Electoral College vote and not the popular vote. As you know, that's happened 4 times in our history. Recently in 2016, with Trump and Clinton, 2000 with Bush and Gore, 1888, and then in 1876, I think Tilden and, forget who, Tyler and Tilden, I think. So it's happened 4 times. In 1912, Arizona became part of the United States. And sort of a national contest was held to come up with a design for the flag. And a gentleman, a historic writer by the name of Wayne Whipple, was from Pennsylvania, came up with a design, and his design was chosen over 500 entries. And this is what his design was. And it's this flag right here. What he tried to show was in the center was a 6-pointed star representing the original 13 colonies. The circle is a circle of 25 stars, which represented the 25 states that came into the Union up until the time of the centennial in 1876. The outer ring has 10 stars on it. They would be the 10 states that joined the Union after the centennial. As each state would be added to the Union, a star would go on the outer ring. He referred to this flag as the peace flag. It was very popular, people loved it, but Congress did not approve it. Instead, they took the recommendation of an Army and a Navy board of officers who suggested that we have 6 rows of 8 stars. And that's what the 48-star flag looked like. In 1912 also, this would be the first time the configuration of the stars would be set by presidential order. It also was the first time that we see standards for the size and the ratios of stars to the entire flag. So a whole group of rules and regulations came in 1912 as part of the 48 Star Flag. The 48 Star Flag served for 47 years, 8 presidents, 2 world wars. In July 1960, the 50 Star Flag was born with the admission of Hawaii into the Union. The 50 Star Flag is our 27th official flag. It is the oldest flag in our existence now, longer than any other flag. It served under 12 presidents. You might be interested in hearing about how the 50 Star Flag was designed. It was designed by a 17-year-old high school kid from Ohio who decided to make a flag as part of a history project. And this happened in 1958. In 1958, when Alaska was about to become a state, it was a well-known fact that Hawaii was still going to join us right after that. So what Robert Hep decided to do was, he decided to make a 50 Star Flag instead of a 49. He took one of his parents' old flags, he cut out the canton, he made a new canton, took his mother's sewing machine, sewed it together, cut out 100 stars, applied them to both sides of the flag, spent about 12 hours making this flag, cost him $2.87. And he handed it in to his teacher as his project. Well, his teacher was not very complimentary, to say the least. He said, first of all, it doesn't have the right number of stars. So he gave him a grade of B- for the project. And he made a promise that if it's ever adopted, that he would change the grade.
To what?
Robert didn't give up. So when Hawaii was coming into the Union, he gave his flag to his congressman, Congressman Muller, who then presented it to the design committee. And lo and behold, this flag design was chosen from 3,000 entries. I understand that there were 3 flags with the same design as his. But his was selected because he was the only one who made an actual flag rather than a drawing. So his was selected. He got a call from the White House, and when the 50 Star Flag was raised, he was standing next to President Eisenhower when the first flag went up. He would often say, I didn't set out to design a flag for the nation. I was just trying not to get a bad grading. Keeping his promise, by the way, his teacher did change his grade to an A. Here he is, I forget the date of this. He's receiving a citation from the Michigan State Senate. After he retired, he was a school teacher. After he retired as a school teacher, he had some illness, so he wanted to sell the flag and set up an education trust fund for for his nephew and nieces. So he put his flag out on eBay to sell at a buy price of $250,000. There were no takers, none at all. In fact, he tried a couple times after that, and there were still no takers. When he passed away, his estate went into the hands of a law firm in Saginaw, Michigan, and they also have possession of the 50 Star Flag. So it is still not sold as of a few years ago. people ask me, why didn't it sell? My guess is, what I've heard is, you can't always tell, is this exactly the flag that he made? And $250,000 is a lot of money. Here are a couple of other entries that were proposed for the 50-star flag that didn't make it. I'm sorry, what did in your way here?
Richard,
Yeah,
these are drawings?
yeah, these are drawings, I'm sorry. These are all drawings, yeah. Most of the submissions were drawings. In case you want to know what the 51-star flag would look like, I own one, and this is it. I hope we never get there. Okay. Just a couple of reminders. Tomorrow is Flag Day, and it's an important day. So remember tomorrow those that sacrificed for the rest of us, and be proud of the American flag. Gina mentioned that when the exhibit comes down on July 13th, there'll be another talk of famous flags in American history, 2 o'clock. I hope you'll come. I think you'll enjoy it. It's very interesting. What I want to do, sort of in preparation for that, is sort of as a prelude to the talk in July, and in honor of D-Day 75th anniversary last week. One of the flags I normally talk about as famous in American history is this one. This 48-star ensign with a bullet hole in it from a German machine gun was flown from the stern of the USS LCC-60, a landing craft. It was a radar-driven ship. It was one of 3 that was supposed to land at Utah Beach and direct the incoming troops and supplies. When the 3 ships left England, this is the only one that made it across the channel. And it missed its landing spots by about 500 yards. As it turned out, that was a blessing because they hit a soft spot in the German defenses. This boat, with this flag and crew, made 19 landings back and forth across the channel before it was relieved. The flag, here's the crew, the flag stayed in the family of the skipper, Howard Vanderbeek, for about 60 years. And then it was acquired by someone through an estate auction. It was later sold at auction a few years ago for $514,000. These are the kind of stories that I love to tell about the flag, and these are the kind of stories that I will be telling to some degree in July. In closing tonight, I just wanted to say that collecting historical American parade flags is a passion with me, obviously. And it's been an important part of my life and my wife's life for the last 25 years or so. For those of you who don't know, the flag in the back there is my first flag, which is a gift from this lady right here. So it's been an important part of our lives for the last 25 years. So I hope tonight this presentation has given you a better insight into the history of the Stars and Stripes, as well as perhaps a greater appreciation for America's symbol of freedom and the spirit of patriotism it so beautifully represents. So thank you for being here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, Paul.
So I've got a question.
Bob, you're gonna have to help me.
You mentioned some standards, right? Where,
I'm sorry, Paul, I'm gonna get a little closer. I'll give you that.
so different standards were set into place, but so as we're looking around at these flags here, there's red and there's blue and there's white. But the red, and I know that these flags have aged quite a bit, but were there standards in the color red and the color blue, and like where did they get that from?
There is now. There's a standard, I call, I forget the color, but there's a standard color number for red and for blue, yeah. But not the case. Some of these are oxidized, that's what happens. This one's turned orange, that one's brown. But nowadays, it is a set color, yes. Yeah. Oh, good. Yes, sir.
Did George Washington actually carry the American flag across the Delaware River?
George Washington carried probably the continental colors. Across.
Because that, when crossing Betsy Ross was 2 years later.
Yeah. Most people look at the crossing from the painting that was done in the 1870s. The Betsy Ross flag did not exist per se on when he made that crossing. If there was a flag on his boat, I'm not saying there was, if there was, it most likely would have been a continental color. Yes.
Richard, I wanted to just ask you a quick question. Forgive me. Years ago, I was on the World Trade Center task force when 9/11 hit with a number of other, with the state of New Jersey. And one thing they mentioned, there was the flag of the 3 firefighters, very iconic photo that was taken. And we know it was ripped off from a boat in the bay. And for a number of years, people didn't know where it was, but I know it meant to, a lot of the firefighters, a lot of people that were there in Liberty, the World Trade Center. Do you happen to know where it is today?
Come on, July 13th. It's an interesting story, by the way, because the original flag was not there 5 hours later. Must have done a good job. Okay.
I
Anything
have
else?
a question.
Yes,
Are you gonna
Steve.
show that last very special slide that you showed me yesterday, or Tuesday?
You want me to show you?
Yes.
Which one do you want me to talk about?
From second grade.
Writing?
Third grade.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, while he's finding, I just wanted to point out, there are a few
Just,
copies of Richard's hardcover book signed by the author. We only have a few left. If you want to buy one tonight, they're $35, and a portion of the proceeds does go to Squires Point Historians.
I have
All right, fine.
I have it here, so I can.
All right.
Gina's question was, it's a question I get asked all the time. When did I first become interested in the flag? And my answer has always been, and truthfully, since I was a teenager, I've been a political junkie. I mean, that's the answer I always give. A few years ago, I was up in the attic rummaging through some stuff. I have saved everything I've ever had. Since I was a kid. And I was rummaging through some stuff, and I ran across something that was kind of interesting, and it was this. This is a penmanship book that we had when I was in grammar school. And each year, grade through 1 through 6, each year, we would write a specimen of our signature, specimen page, and would go in this book. So I discovered this up amongst my pile of stuff, and I started to thumb through it. And I got to the second page, and I could have fallen on the floor, because this is what's on the second page. Grade 2, February 1946. Our flag is red, white, and blue. So now when people ask me, when did I get interested in the flag? I say since the second grade. I still can't explain why I capitalized blue. A little bit blue is my favorite color, but I don't think Thanks for asking that question. If you have a minute, I can tell you one more story. Everybody okay?
Tell about the Grease Flag.
No,
No?
I'm gonna
Okay.
talk about your flag.
Oh, okay.
I say this because I never know, you know, whether the audience is interested, but I want to tell you the story of this flag because it's a personal story. And people ask me, what's your favorite flag? Believe me, there are lots of them in this room. But this is obviously one of them. This is the first flag that was given to me by my wife. And I'll tell you the story behind it because we went to an antique show. We used to go to antique shows up and down the coast every weekend. And one Saturday we were down in Pennsylvania. And visiting a dealer friend of ours. And she had this flag hanging on the back wall of her booth. We were in Chatt's Ford. It was May 1991. Flag was hanging on the back wall of Betsy Miller's booth. I love the flag. But it was more money than I could afford. And we had hoped that that had been like bullet holes, but
It's just.
at the time I didn't know whether this was a Civil War flag or a Centennial flag. I mean, now I can tell this is a Centennial flag. But we weren't sure about the holes. But anyway, I love the flag, but I didn't buy it. Unbeknownst to me, the person in our family with the deepest pockets made arrangements, that's my wife, she has the deep pockets, made arrangements to buy the flag and gave it to me as a 30th wedding anniversary in September. And I remember coming down the stairs to go to the office that morning, and there it was hanging over the fireplace in our living room and fell. And I could have fallen on the floor. So that's another, each flag here I could tell you a different story about, but you know, we'd be here all night.
I have a question. How many flags do you currently have in your collection?
Currently,
Currently.
I'm not sure, but about 160 maybe. I've sold 70 or some flags in the last couple of years. I haven't bought anything in a while. Yes, yes.
What's the oldest flag in your collection?
The oldest flag in my collection is not here. It's a 23-star flag, dates to about 1830. It's a little guy, handmade, silk, embroidered stars. It's oxidized like that, brown throughout the entire thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. That's the oldest one. About 23. Yes, ma'am.
These young men may be interested in the flag you have that was given to a young boy for a
Yeah,
birthday
that-
present. You don't have that with you either, but.
I have a World War I flag. It's one of the, I remember we were talking about this yesterday, I guess. I have a little flag. Remember when World War I ended, troops were in France. I mean, the people were in France were so happy to be liberated. And you can imagine the troops marching down the street, and people are coming up to them, hugging them and kissing them, giving them flowers and all kinds of stuff. And I have a flag that was given to one of the soldiers by a little French boy who painted it on a piece of oilcloth. And it's probably 2 postcards together, like maybe about this size. And it's just beautifully red, white, and blue. And on the back of it is written a note by the soldier, Sergeant Path. This was given to me by a little French boy in Erie, France, and has the date. I think it might have been on the Armistice Day. I'm not sure. So it's a cute little flag. That's one of the things. I mean, you can look around the room and see some great star configurations. But one of the things I love to collect are flags with the stories, and that's what makes my collection different than anybody's, because I have flags with stories. And that's why I'm always interested in telling the story, because to me, the cultural part of it is so important. Yes, there was a question. No, okay. Yes.
No, I just wanted to thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
deepening my interest in the flag. It's something that I've always revered since I was a child. I was in first grade with deal, because it upset my father no end, because he had his 48 star. He served in what did he serve? National Guard for 9 years, and now all of a sudden but he flew it anyway. But it's something that I've always been interested in, and you really filled out the whole story, and it's absolutely beautiful, and gave me goosebumps. Thank you so
That
much.
word.
Oh, yes.
How and when did they decide to fold the flag into a triangle?
Yeah, when they fall in a triangle, there's 13 folds, each one represents something, I don't remember them all. But each time it's folded, it represents a certain, love your mother, love your father, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, but it's 13 folds.
And it
Bring
started
them up.
colonial times?
I'm
Or
sorry?
when did it start? Colonial times or when? Any idea?
That I don't know. That I don't know. Bring them up, my school's an honor board and the two minutes. Thank you all for coming.